Hi, this is Jordan from Recap Animation. All properties are owned by their respective companies. Please enjoy. The story begins on October 21st, the year 1600, in the Battle of Sekigahara. Shimazu Toyohisa joined the battle and kills his way through the army of soldiers. Fukushima Masanori, Eastern Army commander, fights the Shimazu army, but he couldn't withstand their fierce attack and is also surprised by how persistent the soldiers are. The aid of Lee Naomasa, general of the Eastern Army, is requested. The general, hearing the news, agrees to assist. Toyohisa makes his last stand, telling his uncle Shimazu Yoshihiro, the Western Army general, to return to Satsuma. Still, Yoshihiro disagrees with him and tells him to retreat with him to Satsuma. Toyohisa then tells him he'll stop the enemy troops even if he and all these troops die here. As long as he returns to Satsuma, this battle will be won. As the Naomasa army approaches, Toyohisa and his soldiers confront them, trying to buy as much time as possible for Yoshihiro to escape. Toyohisa charges ahead, slaying as many as he can, and faces Naomasa. Still, when he suddenly jumps to attack Naomasa, he is pierced by multiple spears from Naomasa's men. Toyohisa, while still pierced by the spears, pulls out a gun and shoots Naomasa, making him fall from his horse. His troops then take Naomasa and choose to withdraw. Witnessing that, Toyohisa starts shouting for Naomasa to leave his head behind. Toyohisa takes the spears out of his body and, with heavy injuries, starts heading to Satsuma, but is soon suddenly transported to a long corridor with multiple doors and a man sitting on a desk and reading Toyohisa's file. Toyohisa begins to wonder where he is and who the man is, but the man writes something on his file, then looks at him for a moment, and abruptly, Toyohisa is sucked into one of the doors. Toyohisa then teleports to a different world where two elves, Mark and Marcia, find him. They realize he is a drifter and decides to take him to the abandoned castle. As the elves get closer to the castle, another drifter, Nasu Tsukitaka Yoichi, tells him to stop. If they move, he will kill them. Mark and Marcia explain, while shivering from fear, that Toyohisa is also a drifter and he is dying. Realizing that Toyohisa is a drifter like him, Yoichi tells the elves to leave him and return. Oda Nobunaga, from the ruins, asks Yoichi about what is going on. Yoichi explains that Toyohisa is most likely from Japan and is critically wounded. They decide to tend to his injuries and then leave him to his fate for his survival. Toyohisa later wakes up, and as he sees Nobunaga, he draws his sword and asks about his identity. At the same time, Nobunaga asks him who he is and what era of time he is from. Toyohisa then notices the Moku crest and wonders if this man is from the Oda clan, but the men in question state he is Oda Nobunaga himself. Toyohisa doesn't believe him and says that Nobunaga is long dead, and as he was about to attack him, an arrow suddenly passes between them, and Yoichi arrives and stops them, giving Nobunaga and Toyohisa ducks and telling them to pluck their feathers. After plucking the feathers, Toyohisa says that Nobunaga has been dead for over 18 years. Nobunaga is surprised, as it has only been 6 months since the assault of Honoju and his transfer into this world. Yoichi starts to laugh at them for arguing for a few years and reveals he is Nasu Tsukitaka Yoichi, making Toyohisa yell that he is lying, as Yoichi is from 400 years ago from the Genpei War. They then ask Toyohisa who he is, and he explains he is from the Shimazu clan, making Nobunaga and Yoichi wonder who that clan is, and remembering it's a small provincial clan from Kyushu, they then make fun of him for being from the countryside, provoking Toyohisa into almost attacking them, but Yoichi tells him not to move around too much or he'll die. After that, Nobunaga and Yoichi explain that before their supposed deaths, they ended up in a strange, long passage with multiple doors and a man sitting in front of them. Hearing that, Toyohisa states that he also met him while leaving Sekigahara. Seeing Sekigahara being a battle between Tokugawa and Ishida forces makes Nobunaga wonder what happened. Toyohisa explains, confusing Nobunaga about how things could end up this way. Nobunaga then asks about his son, and learns about his death because his place was attacked, and he thought Nobunaga died and fought to the bitter end. Nobunaga laughs, and then mutters while being sad that he should have gotten out there. Yoichi comments that the world is uncertain. He was also astounded to learn that the Minamoto clan was overthrown and the Kamakura shogunate destroyed. Outside, a girl named Ulminyu observes them and informs her boss Abe no Haruakira that there are 3 drifters. At the same time, Abe tells Ulminyu that they have to be dealt with, otherwise it will surely be the end of the world. We see then an army marching. Abe is informed by Kafto that he is currently observing 2 elderly drifters engaged in a fight. Scipio and Hannibal are arguing and fighting with each other, with Hannibal accusing Scipio of stealing his strategy and calling him a thief. Scipio denies the accusations. Abe instructs Kafto to put a stop to their actions. Meanwhile, in the elven village, Shara scolds Mark and Marcia for going to the abandoned castle, as it would be horrible for them to get involved with the drifters in any way. Aram is marching his troops towards the elves' territory. Toyohisa and Nobunaga wake up at the abandoned castle when they smell a battle. Nobunaga sees fire and explains that it's the elves' village and they are likely under attack by bandits or brigands. He explains that the elves carried Toyohisa to them, and hearing this, Toyohisa instantly starts running towards the village, explaining that he doesn't know where he is. Still, the only thing left for him is to charge ahead. Nobunaga and Yoichi decide to pursue him. Toyohisa makes fun of Nobunaga for being slow, but Nobunaga responds by explaining that he is 50 years old. When Yoichi asks Toyohisa how old he is, Toyohisa replies that he is 30, which makes Yoichi smug because he is only 19. They see Mark and Marcia being pursued by 4 soldiers, and Nobunaga shoots the one with the horse. At the same time, Toyohisa passes the elves and slays 2 of the soldiers. Then attacking the 4th soldier, while their swords are locked with each other, the soldier asks whether he is a drifter from the abandoned castle, but as it's a language that Toyohisa doesn't understand, he tells him that he doesn't speak Japanese. He must die, and then slays the soldier. Toyohisa turns to the elves and informs them that as they saved his life, he saved theirs. When Nobunaga mocks him by saying they don't speak Japanese and must be killed, Toyohisa quickly teaches them how to say help in Japanese. Nobunaga sees the soldiers and realizes they aren't some bandits. He then expresses a desire to claim the village. As Ulminyu is still observing them, Abe overhears them and is surprised as Nobunaga says claim and not help or take back, and comments that their nature and ability are wanting to conquer the land. Aram lines up the elves in the village while the soldiers are burning the houses. He tells them that they will get punishment because they saved a drifter. He reminds them it's forbidden for them to enter the forest, making bows and associating with the drifters. They are all serious crimes for elves. The village elder explains that it was just the children who wanted to save the dying man, but he only insults them in reply. Shara complains that they must enter the forest to get firewood and hunt. They have also taken their women and are basically suggesting they die. Aram affirms they need to die, along with the other demi-humans like dwarves and hobbits, and then suddenly kills the village leader. Then the other soldiers also start killing elves, with Aram explaining that they are permitted to kill 50% of them. Aram then acquires news that there is a fire in the wheat field. While this is going on, Nobunaga and Yoichi set fire to the fields, and Nobunaga tells Yoichi that people without dignity can live as long as they have food, and people who don't have food can deal with it if they have dignity, but people who are losing both will cling to anything they can. On the other hand, Toyohisa charges at the soldiers and starts killing them without alert. He turns to face Aram and tells him to leave his head before going anywhere. Mark and Marcia come and explain to Shara and other villagers that Toyohisa saved their lives. Seeing the dead elves lying around, Toyohisa gets angry and tells him that he doesn't need his head anymore, but only his life. Toyohisa then tosses his katana at Aram, who blocks it. Still, at that moment, Toyohisa shortens the distance, grabs Aram, and brings him to the ground. Toyohisa then takes his katana sheath and smashes Aram's head with it, barely leaving him alive. Toyohisa then provides the elves with a sword and tells them to kill Aram and avenge their precious. Initially, they refuse, but eventually agree, picking up weapons and killing Aram. Meanwhile, Yoichi has killed the fleeing soldiers. Nobunaga speaks to Toyohisa into is sitting on a crate while Nobunaga and Yoichi are standing next to him. Murasaki reads in the newspaper about the drifters taking the village. Easy comes and tells him that no matter how much he struggles and sends drifters, she will still win. Murasaki tells her to go away and that the wrongs must be righted, and he won't let her have her way, and he also calls her a pathetic woman. She gets angry and shows him that the Black King commences his northern invasion and explains that his drifters can't possibly defeat her ends. Olminyu tells Abe that the drifters had seized the village and she'll bring them there immediately. Still, Abe tells her not to bring them here, and she should also not come, as it's dangerous as the invasion of the ends begins. Abe is concerned about the arrival of the Black King, but the Carneades warriors try to reassure him that everything will be okay. They explain that no one has ever been able to break through their wall, and that they have been driving them to the other side for hundreds of years. After observing them, Abe comes to the conclusion that those soldiers are useless and won't even last 2 days. So he then decides to go and check the situation in Cave 2, hoping that the two old drifters would lead the army and save the country. Otherwise, this country will be destroyed. After meeting with Scipio and Hannibal, they are led into a room where the Carneades are waiting for them. The drifters try to persuade the Carneades to let Scipio and Hannibal lead the army, but the Carneades make fun of them, calling them scruffy and barbarian, and they refuse to let them take charge of the army. They become an even bigger laughingstock when they realize that Hannibal is unable to control his bladder due to his old age, and they claim they will never give the command to such an unpleasant old man. Scipio becomes enraged when he sees that and holds their leader by the collar. He begins to explain how terrifying Hannibal Barca was, and how the Roman Empire did not fear any enemy, even if there were millions of them, but it was only in the presence of that one man that Rome began to tremble. But Abe suddenly stops them and tells them to prepare to escape, as this location is done, and they need to escape before the Black King army attacks. But as they sense disturbances in the magic, Abe realizes that the Black King has already arrived. The Black King, who is in command of a large army, gives his men the order to launch an assault. He then addresses Hijikata Toshoizo, Joan of Arc, and Anastasia Romanova, informing them that they too can launch an assault. The Black King then tells Minamoto no Yoshitsune that he can do whatever he wants, but he also tells him that this is the way he lives his life, and that he intends to continue in this manner. When the Black King asks whether he is on the drifters or the end side, Yoshitsune responds by saying that he is on whichever side interests him more. During the assault carried out by the army of the Black King, a door opens in the sky, and Kano Naoshi emerges from it, piloting a Japanese fighter plane from World War II. Naoshi is confused as to where he is and why there are other people riding dragons. Toshoizo, Joan, and Anastasia were able to break through the walls with relative ease and begin killing the guards. The sight of so much devastation in the city makes Naoshi angry because it brings back memories of the bombings of Japan. Abe transports Scipio and Hannibal to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and before they flee, he questions them about whether or not they are capable of commanding their army, or whether or not they have a chance against the Black King. Hannibal argues that their chances aren't completely hopeless. Abe suggests there may be a glimmer of hope if they join together with the samurai at the abandoned castle. Butch and Sundance take out any remaining enemies with their guns as they make their escape. Upon seeing the heavy machine gun, Hannibal expresses a desire to steal one to destroy Rome. Then, as they were reaching close to the exit, all of a sudden, a dragon appeared in front of them. However, Naoshi came and shot it with his plane, and then he proceeded to shoot the other dragons down. Witnessing that, Abe gets happy that he is a drifter and not ends. Abe expresses his promise as they are fleeing Carneades that he won't let the Black King do as he pleases, and that he will clean up this mess. Back at Carneades, the Black King ordered his bird to find the drifters who had escaped from Carneades and relay the message to his En's army that the drifters' blood had to be spilled. Elsewhere, Olminyu, having lost contact with Abe and wonders what she should do next, Yoichi and Nobunaga leap in front of her, and Toyohisa appears behind her, saying they knew someone was watching them. Olminyu experiences a moment of panic and fears that she will be killed as the "leave your head here" ghost has arrived. Toyohisa becomes irritated with her for calling him that and knocks her down. Nobunaga tells Toyohisa that she speaks Japanese. Toyohisa immediately turns to her and asks her to explain everything, or he will give her to Nobunaga. Olminyu Toyo, who is now quite frightened, explains that she is a magician who works for the Octoberist organization and that she has been observing them as her grandmaster had instructed her to do. Toyohisa cannot fully understand what she is trying to say, so she explains that people who are similar to them are transported to this world. The objective of her organization is to keep track of these people and bring them together. She explains that they are brought into this world to fight against a group called Ends, but the three tell her they are not interested and don't care what she says. Thanks for watching. If this series is the most liked in my current production of anime recaps, I will make a part 2. Also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to help me make more content.